We're rolling.
So, we'll leave her here for a minute while we open up. That's where there's a dummy board. There's also nothing on this side. But that is the dummy board that we'll use to make up a small nucleus colony for the queen that we've taken from the other hive.
Okay, good.
And then there should be another dummy board.
There's a screw there.
There, that's it. So move those. Let's get that hive tool.
Come around that side.
So on a top bar hive, a decorator's spatula works at least as well as a hive tool. And it's even cheaper and more readily available. So here they've built a bit of honeycomb on the end board. And there's very little chance of the queen hiding behind here.
Yeah. So that could become the end board of something else.
So I think that could just be left as it is.
Any bit of smoke on this?
They seem friendly enough to me, but I'm very happy for you to smoke them as well.
I think they're having a little go at me. They might just smoke me then.
Right. You can give them a puff of smoke. They'll be even calmer if they have it. You can give it here where the opening is here as well. So here we've just got some honey on both sides.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what I'd expect. So bees tend to put the honey as far from the entrance as they can, and as high as they can. So if it's a more vertical hive, then the honey tends to be at the top. And because the entrance is here, these first bars should have the honey, and then I'd expect the brood to be about here, and maybe a couple of frames with mainly pollen at the front there.
Okay.
Oh, we've already got brood here. So sealed brood.
These ones I always feel like holding them vertically just because it doesn't feel like it's got the strength any other way.
Yeah,
But
so you can hold them vertical. All of that is vertical. If I was to tip the bar sideways, that's when they would snap. And always try and put them back together the way they came. That's wrong. Definitely something wrong here. That's
together now. Plenty of brood.
So yeah, here we have a really good example of one of the problems with top bar hives. You get bars joined together. So two new bars went in next to each other here. Oops. They now come apart.
Oops.
So
Can I be helpful here?
one of them, massive amounts of honey on this side, and then not enough on this side at all, really.
Yeah.
Although it's, where they started off looks good.
Yeah. So ideally they'd do one at a time with strong guidance from what's around them.
Yeah. So I think this part here is what originally was on here.
Yeah.
And then because they stored honey in here, they make the honeycomb much deeper than the brood comb.
Yeah.
And that then went into the space of the honey
frame.
of the other bar, yeah. So what we could do reasonably here is move these two right to the end here, which means that they are likely to stop using it for brood, but it will leave them the honey for winter stores.
Okay.
And then hopefully in spring they will, well, they'll either be emptied in spring or can
This one
otherwise.
has to come off.
Yeah, that.
Okay.
Well, no, I'd just keep
If
the
that's-
two together.
Yeah, that's so we want that in there. No?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah. So I thought you meant to remove that bit of cone. So yeah, that. If they want to use it, they can use it, and if they don't want to use it, then either way, both of those bars can be cleaned off in spring.
Okay.
If the honey's still on there in spring, then that's honey for you.
Alright.
So that's those two new bars. Did we look at these two already?
Yes.
Those are the two we looked at. And just looking at, looks like it will fit nicely. Just let that be out. Brilliant.
Good save. Okay, lovely blue.
This is much more how we want them to look. So we've got brood there that's all central to the bar. I'm just going to do is on this side there are some bees there, so just clean those off. And then to put them back, this a part that takes slightly longer in a top bar hive than it does with frames.
The bouncy bouncy.
Just gently squish the bees and then release them so that they can get away without getting hurt. So now we're nicely in the brood nest here, and we are looking for some bars with brood that we could use to put in that other colony, and we're also looking for a couple of bars that we can use to introduce that queen to.
But we need to make sure we don't take the queen.
And we need to make sure we don't take the queen. I think this one might be good for the far end here. To leave one, because we've got the bolts sticking in on this side.
Well spotted.
Got to put one empty frame in there, a bar in that. That's it. So again, we've got brood in all stages here. Eye test to see if you need reading glasses. Can you see any eggs or young larvae?
Larvae. Yeah. Oh, I'll give myself a minute. Didn't see any eggs.
Okay. little bit of old comb here in the bottom of the spare end of the hive that needed to be removed. So we can drop this in.
Those are really right in my face. I don't know if they're giving you a hard time.
I'm alright with them buzzing around like this, but it's normal. It's a normal day at work for me having them buzzing around like that. So
yeah, no, this just feels a little bit more foot to petals in the metal.
Definitely. Just give them a little puff of smoke. There we go. Yeah, but burn yourself. So there are some eggs here.
Yeah.
In this patch here where the brood recently emerged.
Okay, yeah, I can see a little something. I'm not getting the, you taught like a grain of rice with a bit of a glisten.
Yeah, and well, the glisten is more with the larvae.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, and much smaller. I used to get confused when people said about the grain of rice. They were referring to the shape rather than the size.
All right,
So much smaller than a grain of rice. But if you could get the torch on it, that might help. So I think they're about 0.2 millimeters across, maybe twice as long.
Yeah, not mahusive then.
No. Oh, now I'm starting to doubt myself.
Good.
See you again. No, there's definitely some there. By all means take the torch and so you can move it around. There's some with larvae, some with eggs in.
I can definitely see the larvae. It's not eggs is something I will have to get my eye in. Yeah, but there's loads.
Anyway, so these are the bees that are going at the end here with our rescue queen.
Mm-hmm.
Oops, wrong way around.
Is there a simple way to turn this torch off?
I
can't bring down the top screen.
It doesn't work so well with gloves.
Yeah.
It does with these thin mechanics gloves.
Hey.
Perfect.
Another reason to be cheerful.
Yeah, that will fit together. So, queen introduction cage.
Yeah.
You hang it by that.
Yeah.
So you get a little bit of a stick from somewhere. Small enough to go through. That might be a bit on the soft side.
Will this do it, Christian?
That might well do it. See if it's thin enough to go through. Yeah, perfect. We only want it short. Peel this piece of bark off. There you go. Should we do a close up for the camera?
Okay.
So here's the queen in the
Right,
cage.
bring it down. Okay, that's good.
Here's the queen in the cage. Here's a loop. I'm going to stick this through like so.
Yeah, down again. There we go. And twist to the side.
Stick
Perfect.
that through like so,
Yep.
and then we can just pin that into the honeycomb,
Oh, okay.
and the bees will eat through the sugar here. That's icing sugar with a tiny bit of water in it. And once they've eaten through it, they should have become accustomed to her smell, which they can access through here without killing her.
I'm going to bring the camera over just to see this operation. Okay.
So here we're going to stick this in. We want it near the brood, so where I'm sticking it in there's honey, but just below that there's brood. Let's untrap the bee that was behind it, that's it.
Okay.
And then push that together, which means that the stick will stick into the other side as well.
Very good.
Let those bees go behind it. And a bar here just to give them some space. And then we'll put the end bar in. Untrapping the bees that are behind them. There we go.
Okay.
Then we'll put the end bar in. That queen will be released in the next 24 hours, 48 hours, and either she'll do something good in this colony or she won't. If she doesn't, and we'll also open this up
Okay.
so that the colony actually has an entrance.
Very good.
So next time we go through this colony, they're still not doing anything. Oh, here's a wax moth, which we definitely want to kill.
Just keep popping away from them.
Yeah, if we just stick some other bars here, and then that's why it's also important to have the whole thing full of bars, because then that keeps everything closed up.
So they got a detached house instead of a end of terrace semi or something.
Yeah. So if in a week's time we have a look and see if there are eggs there, then we'll know that she's viable, then she's doing her thing, and she can stay there. We'll feed that colony up so that we've got a full-size colony to go into winter, or a viable nucleus colony at least, whatever.
Honey there.
Down the bottom here. Young larvae and eggs. With smoke in there, you should really be able to, that will be easier to see then once
There's the smoke in there.
I move it across. Smoke might need filling up as well before it goes out. Have a look here before.
Yeah.
See if you can see anything in there. With the lighter coloured cone it should be easier to see.
Need my eyes tested.
bees are definitely starting to feel a bit more upset about something.
Yes. Lovely brood there.
Yeah, and really nice solid brood pattern there with virtually no gaps in it. Show that to the camera there. All solid, no gaps.
This queen is unmarked, isn't she?
Yeah.
No, we haven't put a collar on her, so I guess if we're going to take a frame over to the other hive or two, that's the big thing to avoid.
Yeah.
Nicking the queen. But you expect it to be in the brood and nearer the door, but not in front of the door.
Yeah, so she could be on, reasonably be expected to be on any of these frames coming up here now.
Right.
And anywhere where there's brood is a place where the queen has been, by definition. Because there can't be brood there if she's not been there. This colony, I've never known it be so upset, actually. They're generally really docile, but different weather conditions do change things. Also, all that mowing that's been going on will upset them. I'm just checking to see now if there are young larvae on here that could be made into a queen. So this is looking like a potential good frame to use, partly because they haven't built all the way down to the bottom. Because otherwise it won't actually fit in that box. Oh, unless we took two of the empty frames out from the box from the box below, because they're empty anyway. That would be a possibility. Then that would give us more options. Although a bar like this would be fine anyway, because this certainly wouldn't reach down too far. But where this is very full of sealed larvae, and I'm not seeing any eggs on this one. Yeah, I'm not seeing the eggs on that one that I'd want to be transferring. But maybe on here. They really are very different to how I'm used to them being. I think they prefer you to prefer Marilees to you.
No, so do I.
No, but that's something that is again and again really clear, that different weather conditions, different things that I don't even understand do affect bees very differently. I'm quite aggressive with my cold policy on sort of bad-tempered bees. If bees were consistently behaving like this, I would definitely cull them. But I've experienced, like, almost any colony, no matter how friendly it is, will have days when it behaves like this. And likewise, colonies that routinely behave like this, certain days you open them and they're lovely. It's
A mystery.
there's quite a few times that I've given a colony a reprieve because they're always like this, and then I go to find the queen. Alright, I'm getting rid of that one, not having it anymore. Open it up and they're lovely.
Sorry, Christian, we'll be good now.
Next time I open them 2 weeks later, they're back to worse than this, and so yeah, definitely. Yeah, there's plenty of eggs on here, so I think these two would definitely be really good to use.
Just in that one, was it?
Yeah.
So, how can you convince yourself you're not taking the queen?
That is a really good question.
Why, thank you.
The best way of knowing that the queen isn't on these bars is knowing that she is on somewhere else.
We haven't seen her anyway.
So we haven't seen her yet. So we'll just put these 2 bars in here and hope that we do spot her in a minute. Because that's, seeing her elsewhere is the only guarantee that she's not on there. A lot of drones here on this second from the end bar. Some interesting colours of pollen here. We've got the pinkish white and bright yellow. Not particularly expecting to find the queen here at the end. There was no brood on that. Which doesn't mean that she can't be here, it's just my expectations of finding her here are low. But then I certainly didn't expect to find the other queen in the place where we found her. So
she's a dark-bodied queen, isn't she? A strong-looking girl.
yeah. Yeah, so something both the queens here have got in common is that they're nice, strong-looking queens physically. Just gonna scrape off. Scrape off. Probably scraping on here. I like to always drop what I scrape off back into the hive, because a lot of that will be propolis which the bees will recycle. Now we can go back through and look carefully for the queen again. The thing is that if she's stuck to the side or the bottom, we won't find her anyway, no matter how much we look on the bars.
So I guess the other less secure way is to really be very scrupulous in checking the bees on the frames we do take.
Exactly.
Okay.
And if we were to remove the queen from here, this being a nice strong colony, what they would certainly do is make an emergency queen cell,
Right.
or several.
Yeah.
So we could then be, if next week we find an emergency queen cell in here,
Yeah.
we can be pretty certain that we inadvertently removed the queen.
Yeah.
And then we can hope that the other colony didn't kill her.
Yeah.
So what do you want to do, Mark? Do you want to go back through and have another look for the queen, or
Well, let's just have a
should
look
we
at
have
the two we've got that we were thinking of moving. And
It's definitely the quicker option.
yeah. So taking these workers with the frame, that's will boost the immediate team over there.
Yeah, that will be an immediate boost to the other bees.
They kind of likely to get on with each other.
Lots of people worry about them fighting.
Yeah.
In my experience, it's not really a problem.
Okay.
Bees that I had a few years ago, they were more prone to fighting.
Right.
And what I would do there is maybe sprinkle a bit of icing sugar on them,
All right.
or dribble a little bit of syrup on the bars, and they definitely seem to be far more interested in food than they did in fighting.
Yeah.
Now I don't even bother with that anymore,
Okay.
and I've got no evidence that it's a problem.
Okay.
But what I was taught to do was to sort of separate them with a sheet of newspaper, so that
Yeah.
by the time they've chewed through the newspaper, they've become accustomed to each other. A bit like the similar principle to what we're doing with the queen cage.
Okay. Well, I don't see the queen. If that's
I don't see the queen either. I'm fairly confident we would have seen her
okay.
if she was on here.
With that look.
I'm okay to transfer her if you are.
Yeah.
Oh, I transfer. Oh! What did I just say? Here's the queen.
Wow. Yeah.
The queen that we were fairly confident wasn't on here.
Okay.
Should we take her over to the camera a minute?
Yeah, sure.
So here's the unmarked queen. Yeah. Oops, now I'm not sure if I'm pointing at it. There's the queen.
Yeah, there she is. A little extended pointy bum bum.
So that shows that you just can't be sure. Yeah, we both spent several minutes each looking on the bar that she was definitely on. Now we can remove her onto another bar, and that way we can absolutely be sure that she's not on one of these two that we're... There she is.
Go underneath your thumb.
So let's get her to somewhere safe so that if she drops off in the hive.
Okay, good. No, you dropped it?
She actually flew across.
Ooh, cheeky minx.
They don't usually fly very well when they're laying, but this one obviously does.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to drop her down in between here.
Yeah, okay. Down you go.
She'll go down anyway. They tend to be phobic of light. So let's quickly take this out before she jumps across to it.
Well done.
And just when you put it down, just gently bounce it. There'll probably be bees under there. How nearly that all went wrong.
Absolutely. Okay, so there's the two top bar frames gone in because it's the brood we do have. The queen we now know hasn't transferred with it, so that's what we want. So we're expecting them to build a queen off of this from the brood we've got, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
So there are eggs on one of those bars.
Yeah.
Eggs and young larvae.
Yeah.
So material to build a new queen. And yeah, we're still in the first half of August, so she should emerge at the beginning of September, first week of September. She should then end of the first week in September she should hopefully be going on mating flights, which is getting towards the tail end of when I'd expect good mating success, providing the weather's okay. She should get mated well.
Okay.
So put a lid on there now.
Cheerio, chummy, cheerio.
Which will fit on reasonably well.
Yeah, bit bodgeroony.
That smoker still working?
Yeah, I refilled it.
Phil Chandler, who's designed that, of our hivers, spent 10 years at Buckfast Abbey when they were still keeping Buckfast bees there. And he was using national hives, which might be one of the top bars in the top bar hive he designed actually fit into the national hive nicely. So slightly proud, but because of that lip, that's a good enough seal.
Okay. Good.
we have a stone to go on top?
Yeah, there should be, yeah.
So we transferred some bees. We transferred
Some brood.
some brood, sealed brood, and both of those will increase the numbers. Then there's open brood, which will give them the material they need to make an emergency queen now that they're queenless. So I'm looking forward to see what happens next.
Yes.
If we move one more bar across here, there we have a really nice bar with brood on it. Actually, if I spin that round, because then just because it's slightly off centre, there's a little bit less space on this side. And then put 2 new bars in between here.
Why 2? If we put 1, wouldn't then that train it to be fairly straight? Whereas 2, we could have the problem we had before.
2, we could have the problem that we had before. The 2 bars that we just removed, they were new bars as well. So last time I was here, because we had more of a honey flow on still, I put 2 bars in then as well. 2 bars here and 2 bars there.
Yeah.
The 2 bars at that end, even though they were still in the brood nest, they were at further away from the entrance, and it was mainly honey that was there. It was the depth of that comb that they drew out on there that meant that then there wasn't space for 2 lots of that deep comb. Because this is close to the entrance, they're just not going to look to store honey in it. And so
they
like
don't
those
draw
2
that deep, so
exactly,
2
because
should be fine.
so the depth of brood comb is constant because it's only the depth that they need it for the larvae. But that's a good question, and that I guess also leads to the point that the thing that I keep saying about putting the new bars in the centre of the brood nest is a good thing, but not just in the centre of the brood nest, but also towards the entrance, closer towards the entrance, where they're less likely to store honey in it and more likely to want to continue breeding in it. Is that duct tape?
Might be from one sugar feeding experiment.
Okay. Well. Time it takes to push these bars together. If you're a hobbyist with half a dozen colonies that you're checking on once a week or once a fortnight, then that's possibly something that's quite realistically doable. If you're a commercial beekeeper with 200 colonies, then the speed at which we went through that other colony, and obviously it having so few bees in meant that we could go faster as well, but it would have just been faster anyway. Now we get to the delicate bit. close to the knot crunch, hopefully. There we go, not a single bee squashed.
Well done. Cool hand, Christian.
It's easier when it's warm like this because it's kind of a viscous slide.
Yeah.
When it gets colder, what happens then is that it tends to be more of a jerky slide, which then does squish them. Now, because we've taken 2 bars out,
Yes, indeed.
we need to go and get 2 new bars.
Okay. Okay.
So,
I can go do that. That one's closed up. I'll just go do them.
should we pause the camera?
Unless you want, you could give a resume of what you've just done.
No.
Okay. I'll go get the bar.
Or fat that your body's got stored
Okay.
from excess carbohydrates that you've eaten in the past. And there are quite a few athletes that are into ketogenic diets now, especially divers, because ketones burn more cleanly with less demand for oxygen. I think what we'll do here is we'll take these two out in a minute. So, and then put the pressure on.
Are you going to get two in there? Maybe one of these and one of...
So what I'm trying to do is actually put tension on, which then closes up all the gaps. It might be too much tension.
That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, it's too much. So what if we put that way? That might be not enough tension then. We'll see. That might be perfect. If those bars weren't so narrow, if they were as wide as the other bars.
Had some demons sunny Jim.
Let's try one more time and then I'll have to try something else if that doesn't work. And evidence of the truth of this theory that one uses needs less oxygen to produce the same amount of energy. My girlfriend's diabetic and not vastly physically fit, and we've both noticed since we're on the keto diet that she's much more able to walk up the hill without getting completely out of breath than she was before, with no extra training. Only difference being the change in diet, because she doesn't need as much oxygen to release the same amount of energy, or with the same amount of oxygen her lungs are providing, she is able to produce more energy. So, we'd quite like to put a feeder in here, which we could make, which means that these holes will need blocking up, whether you put tape over or whatever, because otherwise bees will come in under the roof and go in through there, and there could be bees from other colonies that then promotes robbing, which we definitely don't want.
Alrighty. How would it be if the feeder were next week, just because I'm sure they're worrying about time now?
Yeah.
Because we've seen there is actually a bit of a feed flow on.
There's a bit, but not much. So there's enough to keep them ticking over, but not enough to get them building up nice and strong.
Okay.
Definitely recommend those need feeding, because they're much more likely to produce a decent queen cell if there's some food in there.
Okay. They've got quite a bit in.
They've got loads of stores, but they haven't. It's the psychology of food coming in.
Right.
So they're definitely not short of food.
And there's stuff in the channel to the side as well.
Oh, is there?
Yeah, but it might be a bit crystalline.
Oh, that's sugar. That's not syrup.
Okay.
So the sugar actually needs to be dissolved.
Yeah.
It could. Yeah, I noticed there was some set sugar in there. Over time, they will have that.
But they need a lot of water to do so.
Yeah, it's the difference between drinking a load of fizzy pop, or not fizzy even. Flat pop goes down even quicker, and licking a lolly.
Okay.
Licking a lolly takes lot longer to get that sugar in. And bees are even worse at licking lollies than we are.
So can we just add water into that groove?
I'd recommend adding sugar water.
Yeah.
But actually dissolving the sugar in the water.
Yeah.
So 1 kg of water with 1 litre of tap warm water and hot water. Stir it for 5 minutes or 3 minutes, and it should be fully dissolved.
Okay. And pour that in.
And then pour that in.
So on those poly hives, they drink from the top, or they feed from the top, or do they take it from the bottom?
No, they take it from. So in through. On this side, there's a little entrance that they can go through.
Right.
To get access to it. So you pour it in through the top.
Yeah.
But they get at it through an entrance that's down there.
Down there at the bottom?
At the top of the bottom box.
Oh, okay.
And then there should be, but I don't think there is, a bar floating in there.
No, I don't think there is. That's the sort of thing to sit on.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So, wondering if the top bar is too wide or if that would work.
We got this, or otherwise.
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering.
Could be one of these little framey things.
Let's have a look. I think that would be fine.
Okay.
Dropped in there. Yeah, because there isn't a bar in there.
So we need to make sure that when we pour the sugar, it doesn't get
higher
above
than about there. Above about there.
Okay, so.
And if it's, I think it might be slanting back a bit. So look at this end, not at that end.
Okay. So the shallow end.
So at this end, you can actually see that line quite clearly as well. And if I shine my torch down there, even more clearly. Oops. Why is that just turned off? You can see there where the top of the bar is.
Oh yeah.
And there you can quite just be able to make out where that, in the middle, that line is a bit more accentuated. And that's where it dips down slightly for the entrance.
Alrighty.
And you can see how to feed you can just slide that across.
Yeah.
You don't even need to open it.
Okie dokie. Alright.
And I believe that pretty much all of our Western diseases need carbohydrates to happen.
Uh-huh.
Whether it's diabetes, cancer, neurodegenerative things, epilepsy, all of it. Am I doing my thing on ketosis while closing up a beehive on camera?
I think so. The lid isn't on properly, by the way.
Oh no, it's not.
Yeah.
At least one of us is paying attention.
Yeah, you're too busy saving the world, man. There you go.
Now it's on properly.
Good.
Frames.
And end recording.